Welcome everyone to the February 26th, 2026 Penfield Planning Board meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Michelle, please call the roll.
Certainly. Kanauer.
Kanauer here.
Aken.
Aken here.
Daly.
Daly here.
McCooey.
McCooey here.
Tydings.
Here.
Sangster.
Sangster here.
Weishaar.
Weishaar here.
O'Connor.
O'Connor here.
Prinzing.
Prinzing here.
Verigno here.
Thank you. We have two new members on the Penfield Planning Board that are joining us. Johnna McCooey is here, and Steve Daly. So welcome. So now we're back to our 5-member board.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So the minutes from the January 8th, 2026 meeting. Board members had a chance to review.
Yes. Motion to approve.
Second.
And for the new members, seeing that you weren't at the meetings, most likely you'll abstain during the vote.
Yeah, so you could abstain, or if you watch the video of the meeting, you could vote. So
Yeah, sometimes we do that. If you can't make the meetings and you watch the video, then future meetings, then people vote. Okay?
Kanauer.
Kanauer, aye.
Aken.
Aken, aye.
Daly.
Daly abstain.
McCooey.
McCooey abstain.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Thank you.
And we have one tabled application on the agenda. Doug, if you want to.
Yeah, so we have one tabled application, 1320 Harris Road, the DeRoller subdivision. This was a 2-lot subdivision out on Harris Road. Since our last meeting, I know the engineer's been working on responding to the December 30th, 2025 PRC memo, PRC being the project review committee. It's a committee of town staff that provide technical assistance to the board and technical review of applications. PRC memo, we did just recently receive that the applicant has heard back from New York State DEC. DEC did issue a positive jurisdiction letter, but as far as I'm aware, have not issued a formal acceptance of the applicant's delineation. Staff has drafted a Part 2 and Part 3 EAF as a negative declaration for the board pursuant to seeker. We did note 2 items on the Part 3 EAF, that the development will be subject to the town woodland EPOD replacement policy. Per the policy, 10 new trees will be required. That was identified as part of EECC, the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee's review. Compliance with the policy will sufficiently mitigate any negative impacts to the woodland EPOD. And second, due to the positive jurisdiction letter and the applicant's delineation showing federal or state wetlands on the property, that they're not proposing any impacts to the wetlands or the adjacent area as the project has been designed. If the DEC accepts the delineation, they'll be outside of it and won't be subject to an Article 24 freshwater wetland permit. But if the DEC does challenge that and push back, that they'll either need to get an Article 24 freshwater wetland permit or modify the site plan to avoid any disturbance to the adjacent area. Likewise, staff has drafted a approval resolution for the board's consideration. I did just get it to you here very late in the game, but two conditions that did stand out were the two conditions that I sort of identified in the Part 3 AF, that they will be required to comply with the town's woodland EPOD replacement policy, and looking at the wetlands, given that part of the area of disturbance, a very small area of the limited disturbance, is close to the adjacent area as delineated by the applicant. But noting that if the DEC challenges it, they'll have two options, either to revise the site development plan and come back to the planning board for a site plan modification to avoid the adjacent area, or to obtain a freshwater wetland permit and do any required mitigations for that. But that either way, they would have to essentially get the sign off of the DEC and the planning board.
Okay. Can I ask a question, Doug?
Yes.
So you mentioned if they get the letter from the DEC that delineates the wetlands, and they might have to modify the site plan, would it be possible, if they have to modify the site plan, could they possibly have to modify the subdivision?
Matt, can you bring up the site plan? Yeah. So we're in a 2-acre zoning district. There's no requirement for flag lots to be any larger than the 2-acre minimum like we do with some of the smaller zoning districts. Both lots are well above the required 2 acres. I think there is enough space that they could move things around and sort of avoid the adjacent area. Can you go to the site development plan? I think it's page 3 or 4. So I do think they'd have space where they could sort of shift things around. Realistically, it's that sort of northwest corner where they come up close to the wetland buffer.
I just hate to see, if something happened, let's say if they had subdivision approval and they filed a plat map, so because I understand if they want to transfer the property, and then if they need some other modification, I don't know, I just hate to.
Typically, we'd bring them back in for a work session just to get a sign off. But if they did have to redo the subdivision, you'd look at having to either come back in through administrative re-subdivision if they can just shift a lot line with the neighbor and getting sign off. But if they had to do something else, that would make it more challenging.
So that would be the only concern I would have with approving it with the conditions today.
And we have had the DEC challenge wetlands recently, so it's not unheard of.
So the only thing that they'd be able to do is file a plat map. They wouldn't be able to pull a permit.
Correct.
You would want, before you sign the Mylars for the site plan?
We wouldn't, typically we probably wouldn't sign the Mylars for the site development plan or the grading plan or the detail sheets, and we wouldn't allow them to pull a building permit or do any site disturbance. So
until they had the
DEC was satisfied that with the delineation, or they push back and challenge it.
Would you know, sorry, I don't usually ask this many questions. Is this a type of plan, though, where it's a single-family residential, you're requiring that to be signed off on the site plan then, right?
Correct.
Because you don't always do that on a single lot.
The way we have our code written, single-family residential requires, if it's not being done as part of a subdivision, requires administrative approval. Administrative approval still has to go through 239M with the county and still requires sign-off by, as an administrative, it would be the Director of Planning and Engineering signing instead of the Planning Board. The Planning Board essentially just delegates it to the town staff.
So I can think of like an example of where the wetlands changed, I think, recently, where it was the subdivision off of Jackson Road. And then they came in and they wanted 2 homes where they thought there was wetlands. Now that was before the change with the
the way the DEC,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it could go either way.
Yeah. So those are the things to be aware of.
The hard part with this is we're beholden to another agency.
Yeah.
So that agency has to make that decision. We can't make that decision for them, so.
And the timeline for DEC,
Is who knows? The jurisdiction letter had to be within 90 days, so we
Yes.
did, the applicant did provide it to us. They got the letter on February 17th, indicating the believed presence of wetlands based on the DEC's review. But as far as I'm aware, they haven't said anything about the delineation report that the applicant submitted with it.
Right, it depends when they submitted the delineation report. The
Yes.
DEC doesn't typically do any wetland delineations in the winter months. So basically, it's sometime in November to possibly late March or April is before they need to see the ground and
Right.
plant growth and stuff like that. So it depends on when they submitted their delineation. Did they get it in the late fall and they're waiting for the paperwork, or are they waiting for the DEC to actually have a thaw ground to come out and visit the site?
okay,
That's the challenge with the DEC.
yeah. Terry, what are your thoughts?
Sounds like it should be tabled, based on what Peter's saying here. We'll table it, let everything get taken care of properly, and when it comes back,
Yeah,
we'll do everything we can
we'll
to help.
visit it
visit
again
that.
next month and see, if there's any progress. Okay,
I know, I've got I represent an applicant in another town, and I know that they won't even accept the application until we've got the letter and that one is, I think, U.S. Army Corps. But, so it delays everywhere.
okay, Kelly?
Yeah, I agree. You just
Okay.
wait and see what happens.
Okay. Joanna, Stephen, do you have any input at this point? I know you just heard, kind of the tail end of it.
My only question would be, let's say DEC signs off, what would be our timeline then for just completing the review? It would just be the next meeting, right?
Yeah, the next meeting. Realistically, the DEC, the wetland delineation was the last thing the board was waiting on as part of the review for this one.
Got it.
I think it makes sense to have some more clarity there. I would prefer to have a better understanding overall before making any vote myself tonight.
Okay? Okay, Terry?
Yeah, I'll make the motion and table it.
I'll second.
Kanauer,
Kanauer, aye.
Aken,
Aken, aye.
Daly,
Daly, aye.
McCooey,
McCooey, aye.
Tydings.
Tydings, aye.
Okay, I think
That was all we
that's-
had on the agenda for tonight.
Okay.
They're not all this short.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We'll
Yeah.
call this meeting adjourned.